Today, we become legends.
So the relic system in Season 9 is basically being overhauled entirely. There's tons of new relics, all the tier 3 upgrades. Every relic gets 2 different ones. And so I felt like doing some kind of power ranking video would make a lot of sense. Obviously, it's incredibly early. Season 9's not even out yet. It's just on the playtest server and things are changing all the time. There's already been 2 PTS balance patches just within like a week of it being out or something like that. So I imagine there will be more, and then there'll probably be balance changes going into like Season 9, like 9.1 patch as well. And so take everything I say in this video with a grain of salt. I have very little experience with it. I've only played a few games on the PTS and watched some other content creators' games and stuff like that. And it's super early days, so things could definitely change. But I thought it'd be interesting to kind of rank them as they are right now and just kind of give my thoughts on what's going to be strong in the new season in regards to relic upgrades. So let's just jump right in. So first up, we have Aegis of Acceleration. This... it's either S or A tier for me. I think I'll drop it S just because it's Aegis. And this is going to be the default upgrade that like squishies use for their Aegis. So this one gives you the stacking movement speed if you take damage like while your Aegis is active. So for each tick of damage you take, you gain like a stacking movement speed buff afterwards, like once the Aegis expires. This one's just going to be the default for squishies, as I said. And so I think it is going to be strong regardless of the fact that really like a little bit of movement speed isn't insane, but it's just going to be the go-to. So like I think it has to be an S tier really. And then the other upgrade, Aegis of Judgment, I would probably put A tier because I think it's going to be used less than the Aegis of Acceleration just because Aegis is generally bought on squishier, more defensive gods, and you don't really need to be dealing like a big burst amount of damage with those gods. It could be good on maybe some like burst mages to potentially like augment their burst damage, maybe on like Hebo or something like that you want this, but even then on Hebo you would want the movement speed, so it's a bit of a difficult one, and I think it will generally be worse and potentially picked up maybe more on like solo laners or junglers or something like that. But it is difficult to fit it in your build as a jungler because you kind of need to go beats blink on basically every single jungler in the game. So it's just a little bit of a weird one. I think it deserves to be one tier down from its counterpart here that I think will be used more. Belt of Insatiable Hunger is pretty good actually. This one's pretty nice. So this one is like the old Frenzy where it buffs your attack speed and it gives you a damage increase. And this one lasts for 10 seconds. And if you get a kill or assist during the duration, it'll give you another 10 seconds on it. So effectively this can last up to 20 seconds, which is really strong. It's a very strong buff. I think it's like 15% boosted damage and 25% boosted attack speed, something like that. And so this can be like really huge for, damage output in a team fight and things like that, but I don't think it deserves like an S tier. It's not going to like break the game or anything like that. Or be picked up by like everyone. And then Belt of the Berserker is the other like Frenzy upgrade because they renamed it to like Belt of Frenzy, I believe it is. Yeah, Belt of Frenzy, Greater Belt of Frenzy, Belt of the Berserker, and Belt of the Insatiable Hunger. So we've done Insatiable Hunger. Belt of the Berserker, in my opinion, is worst. It's either B or C tier. Basically, this one applies a stronger buff, but it decays over time. So like initially on pressing it, you're going to get a lot more stats than you get with this one, but one is shorter duration, it's 6 seconds instead of 10, and you can also extend Belt of Insatiable Hunger by 10 seconds when getting a kill or assist. And just like, it's only going to be like super strong in the first couple of seconds really because of that decaying buff. After about 3 seconds, the buff's going to be essentially halved and it'll be about the same as the other one anyway. So like, if you don't do major damage within 2 or 3 seconds, this doesn't feel amazing, and that's just a little weird to me. I think I'd rather have the longer duration, more consistent buff of Belt of Insatiable Hunger. To be honest, this one could even go down to C tier. It's just, it is an insanely powerful buff. I think it's 30% boosted damage and 50% attack speed, like initially, but obviously, as I said, it decays very fast, so I don't really know how strong this one's going to be. It could be B or C, it could even be D, to be honest, I don't really know, but I think it's definitely worse than Belt of Insatiable Hunger, I'll give you that. We have Blighted Ankh, so this is basically Cursed Ankh from before, except it does like a Cerberus passive effect, so for all the healing you reduce with this, it spreads to nearby allies and like heals everyone. This one to me is the better of the 2 Ankhs, so I'll put it in B tier, but again, like, it's Ankh, you're just going to buy it if you need it against a healer, and that's pretty much all it really serves as a purpose. To be honest, I would have liked to see them do what they did with Phantom with this one and just put it onto a different relic, maybe put it onto Curse or something like that. Horrific Emblem, sorry, I always call it Curse because that's what it used to be called back in the day. And for some reason it's not alphabetically ordered. Well, it is, but like, they're not together. Where's the other Ankh? There it is. So Drowned Ankh I think will be slightly worse than Blighted Ankh. Looking at these 2 relics, actually, they should probably be on the same tier. I don't think they're like, one's really massively stronger than the other. They both do what they need to do as like Ankh. To be honest, I could even move both down to C tier because this is generally just going to be like a tier list based on usage and how often you're going to see these relics and how strong they are in general. And obviously these are strong in the right situation, but you're not going to see them that much because like they're anti-heal relics. So in terms of the bracers, I've never been a fan of them, to be honest. I think they're a bit of a weird item. Sure, they're nice as like a sentry ward, I guess, but just buy sentry wards. Like, you don't need to waste a relic slot on that, and the buffs they provide are like pretty good, and like it's a decent sized area, but I don't know, they just feel a bit underwhelming to me compared to a lot of other relics. This is Bracer of Brilliance, so this one is like a buffed up version of the Bracer that we had before, where it gives 20% power and 20% movement speed for 8 seconds, which is pretty nice, and better than the other one, which I think is like D tier. Both Bracers aren't great, I wouldn't really recommend picking them up for the most part. But then Bracer of Illumination, this one I put in D tier, is basically anti-stealth, which is insanely niche. Like, I'm saying anti-heal is niche, I'm putting these down 1 tier because of it. Anti-stealth is like even more niche than anti-heal, so like, really, you're going to be using this very infrequently, if anything at all. I don't even think it's worth going this over this, just to get the stealth reveal. Like, I don't think it's worth. And Bracer of Illumination gives worse stats than Bracer of Brilliance, the one I put up here in general, so that it can have that stealth reveal effect, and it's just not worth it in my opinion. One of the worst Relic Upgrades. So in terms of beads, we have Chaotic Beads, which is, I believe it's 7.5% max health damage on someone that CCs you while your beads are active, or if you cleanse that CC. And this did have no cap on it at the start of PTS, so like things like Combat's Ultimate and things like that, or Poseidon Whirlpool that constantly tick a CC onto you, like over time, this would just like absolutely one-shot people, but that was obviously not really intended. And so now it's got a limit of 2 hits per cast, basically, so 2 hits per beads. And with that limit on it, it's hard to justify putting them in S tier, but again, it's beads. Like, beads are always going to be insanely common, and I think this is like a solid upgrade of beads. I'm going to get onto the other one in a second, which I also think is good, but yeah, just doing 15% max health true damage is like really nice. You know, if someone's diving you in the back line, you know, just having that little bit of extra damage on them, you know, you often don't get damage from relics, and so it's pretty nice. And then the other form of beads, where is it? Here we go, temporal beads. So this is how beads used to work back in the active item days before they were turned into relics. Works the same as normal beads, gives you a cleanse and then an immunity, but you also reduce ability cooldowns by 3 seconds when you use this. And yeah, you've seen I put it in S tier already. I think this is going to be one of the go-to beads upgrades. I think these two are like very well balanced actually in terms of balanced against each other. I think you could go either of these beads upgrades and do quite well with them, and it kind of depends on your playstyle and your character and stuff like that. So yeah, it kind of depends on playstyle, but I think both of these are definitely going to be really strong, going to be picked up a lot. You know, you're going to see these every game, obviously because it's beads, but like I think you're going to see both of these like pretty frequently. We have the meditations. I think I'll drop these both in A tier. They're both like reasonably solid. The blue one here is Cloak of the Aesthetic, which is basically a buffed up version of the med we've had for a little while, where it reduces cooldowns every tick on pulse, which is really good, as we saw with these beads up here. And then Cloak of the Avatar is, doesn't provide that cooldown reduction that med has provided for a while, but it provides a knockback to enemies that come near you, which I think is going to be really strong. I'm very tempted to put this one in S tier, just because a knockback on a relic feels really strong to me, but I haven't had the experience to say that it's going to be really insane yet. I'm not sure how strong it's particularly going to be. Whereas this is just like meditation we've had for a little while, and we kind of know roughly how strong it is. This one is a little bit more of a wild card, and I almost want to put it in S, but I'm not gonna for now, just because I haven't seen it like perform yet. We have the Blink, so Scorching Blink Rune just goes straight to S tier. This one's insane. It was like somewhat bugged on the PTS, I guess. It wasn't really a bug, it was more so an oversight on high-res part, and they didn't realize how much damage it was going to do, but this was doing over 1,000 damage to people on a relic. But even though that's been nerfed now on the PTS, and it's been nerfed from 8 ticks to 2 ticks of damage, so like literally a quarter of the damage, it's still going to be really strong, you know. As I mentioned with Chaotic Beads, damage on relics is going to be super nice, just to like if you're diving or whatever, you can get that little extra bit of damage to kill that person. And just in general, I think this is going to be by far like the most used Blink upgrade, because Blink is almost always used aggressively, and it's just nice to have that extra damage. And then we have Corrupted Blink Rune, which when you blink in like an AoE around you, it reduces movement speed and attack speed for enemies. So like, it is nice, you know, if you blink in and slowing them and kind of like getting on them and stuff like that. But I just really don't see this ever being picked up over Scorching Blink Rune, even after the nerfs. This just doesn't seem amazing to me. Maybe I should put it in B tier just because it's Blink, but again, I feel like this upgrade will be used a lot more. Like, as I said, I just don't see a reason to pick this up over the other upgrade, which is why it's down a couple of tiers, even though Blink is, like, solid, obviously. So we have the emblems. Emblem of Trembling Terror I don't think is amazing. CC on relics can be very powerful, and a lot of relics now are getting CC. You know, I talked about it with Cloak of whatever it's called, the Wind Cloak meditation, where you can knock people away. CC on relics is going to be good. Whether or not this is, like, B or C, I'm not sure, because it's just a tremble. It really doesn't impact anything that much, you know, tremble just like a little bit of movement disruption. It's not insane. Whereas like I feel like the knockback on this is going to be a lot stronger than that. I'm tempted to put it in B just because I think the base relic of Horrific Emblem is quite strong, and I think it'll probably see some play. And like you can never underestimate CC on a relic. but I think I'll leave it in C for now. And then Emblem of Increasing Peril, I think, is the better upgrade of these. Probably an A tier upgrade, I would say. So this basically provides the original Horrific Emblem debuffs of attack speed debuff, a slow, and damage dealt debuff. But then if the enemy deals 10% of an allied god's max health during that time, the debuffs are increased by 10% each. And this can potentially stack up to 3 times, so you could be getting a 30% increase on all those slows. So you go up to 60% movement speed reduction, 55% attack speed reduction, and 45% damage reduction. Obviously, those are maximum values, and that's not always what it's going to do, but it has the potential to do that. And I just think this seems really strong, you know, like, it's one of those things, a bit like Thorns, I guess, when Thorns is strong in, like, you're always going to get value from it because they don't really want to deal damage to you because they're going to get an increasing debuff put on them. But also, if they're not dealing damage to you, you're pretty happy about that. You know, you can just beat on them while they're, like, not being a bit passive, not really being able to do much. And so this relic does seem really strong. I'm tempted to throw it up to S, but I don't want to just go ham and start throwing, like, loads of relics into S tier. I want this to kind of be reserved for, like, the really OP ones that I think you're going to see, like, every single game. And speaking of CC on relics, we have the sprint that roots people. So this is exactly the same as normal sprint, except in the area around you, it roots enemies for 1 second on use. This one, I think I would drop in A tier. I'm not a huge fan of sprint in general, but I think this upgrade for it specifically is, like, quite good. Just being able to root everyone in that giant area for 1 second is just really good. You know, you can use it as, like, an engage if, like, you know, you're a support, you kind of get in or something like that, or maybe even a solo laner, and you can just root everyone, buff up your team with movement speed, kind of chase them down. But you can also use it as, like, a runaway tool. You know, support goes in, roots everyone, speeds up their team so they can disengage and things like that. It seems to have a lot of uses, and again, CC on relics is probably going to be pretty strong, so I think 80 is pretty reasonable for this one. And then we have the haste version of sprint, which is basically what it was like before, where standard, like, movement speed buffs and all that kind of stuff, slow immunity, and then you also get the haste effect. This one I'm just going to put in B tier. Again, I'm not really a huge fan of, like, basic sprint. It is what it is. I think the root version is going to be better. And we have Shell. So Fortifying Shell, I think, goes straight to S tier. I've always been a fan of Shell. I think it's always been really strong, you know, especially back in the block stack days, of course. You know, it was probably one of the best relics in the game back then. But I think it's still really good, and this upgrade, they added 20% damage mitigation and 20% movement speed after the effect ends. So after your Shell is either broken or it just wears off, you get 20% protections and 20% movement speed. Sorry, I think I said 20% protections there. I meant 20% damage mitigation and 20% movement speed, which is definitely better. And yeah, I think this is just going to be one of the go-to defensive relics for supports. I don't really see any reason to not pick this up. It provides so many useful stats, you know, like, obviously you get the shield, you get the basic attack damage reduction, and then you also get the damage mitigation and the movement speed afterwards. Like, this is just a really nice bundle of defensive stats for your team. I don't see any reason to not pick this up, really. And then for the Phantom Shell, I'll just put it in B tier. You know, it's fine, but it's Phantom Shell. It's very situational. You know, you're just going to be getting it when you need it, basically. There's no reason to ever go this over regular Shell unless there's, like, you know, specific walls in the game that you need it for, but, you know, it's there if you need it. So teleports, these are pretty interesting. I feel like with teleport, it's either going to be really, really good or absolute garbage, both upgrades. So I think persistent teleport is the better of the two. I'll maybe put this one in A tier or, like, B. I don't know. I think for now I'll drop it in B, just because I'm really not a big fan of teleport, but the fact that this is on a 90-second base cooldown and can get reduced from kills and assists and things like that, it could be really good for, like, laning phase applications. You know, if you've got teleport up every 90 seconds, you basically don't need to, like, back without teleport. You know, you can almost always stay for 90 seconds in lane unless you got, like, really fucked up on, like, a bad trade or something like that. And so at that point, you basically just never lose a wave in solo, and it could potentially get you a lot of farm and allow for some, like, early game rotations, TPs to walls and stuff like that. But then it's still teleport. You know, in the late game, it's one of the worst relics to have. You would much rather have, like, you know, blink and something more useful like a blink curse or a blink meditation or anything like that for the late game, really. Teleport's not going to serve you super well late game, but the fact that this is on 90 seconds could be really good for, like, the laning phase and the mid game, I think, which is why I'm putting it up a few tiers instead of being, like, an absolute garbage. And then heroic teleport, I could put it B as well, or I could put it C. I think they're fairly similar in terms of power level, to be honest, but the other one's slightly better than this. I'll just put them in the same tier for now, but again, I think this one's the better one of the two. Heroic Teleport gives you, I think it's like movement speed, protections, and something else when you teleport in. Yeah, it's 40 protections, 20% movement speed, and slow immunity when you teleport in for 10 seconds. So, like, 10 seconds of slow immunity is pretty good. You know, against specific teams, that could actually be a bit of a tech kind of counter pick. And obviously, this is better for, like, late game team fights. When you're TPing in, you'll get those bonus stats and things like that, whereas this one's better for laning phase and kind of mid game rotations. So I guess it does kind of depend on which one is going to be the stronger of the two, based on what you need in the current game. Sundering Blast is like whatever. It's basically current Sunder, but like better. So it does the usual stuff, you know, it has 2 charges, makes people take increased damage, does percent health current damage, I believe, percent current health damage, and also removes shields. I forgot about that. But in general, I just don't think this is that great, and the upgrade is a lot better. So we'll jam this one in, I guess, A. Again, this is another one I kind of want to put in S, but I don't want to just like jam S full of like relics I think could potentially be strong. But Sundering Siphon deals 5% current health damage, true damage every second for 4 seconds when you link to them. So basically when you sunder them with this version, you like link to them and start stealing health from them. And this one still has 2 charges, so you could steal up to 40% of current health as like dealing damage and then stealing it back to you as true damage, which just seems really strong to me. Like, this could be really good to either augment like some self-sustain on a solo laner or something like that, or maybe a jungler, although not going beads blink on a jungler is a bit cringe in the current meta, so I'm not sure about that. But this just seems really good. You know, either augmenting your sustain or giving your god some sustain if they didn't really have any before. You know, you can build this with like maybe some kind of sustain item and potentially get some good regen there to like help you survive and stuff like that. And again, yeah, this has 2 charges like the other Sunder, so like it's a little bit forgiving if either you miss one or they break the link on one, which by the way they can do if they go further than 60 units away from you, the link will break. So, but yeah, I still think this one's really strong. This is one of like, I guess, my prediction ones, like this, and this, that like I think could be really strong, but I'm leaving them in A for now because I haven't seen them perform yet, basically. Whereas like all these S tier ones are just like, they're really good upgrades on relics that are already really good, and like they're obviously going to see play. You know, like this is the default upgrade for Aegis, obviously going to see play. Beads going to see play. Blink going to see play. Shelf going to see play. They just all got like better than they were before, basically. Whereas like a lot of these ones in A tier are like new effects or like changed effects that I think could be potentially strong, but I'm not sure about yet, basically. And we're left with finally Thorns. So I think this first upgrade is pretty bad, honestly. So this one gives you effectively like a mini Thor passive, but for movement speed and attack speed for like each enemy god within your range while you have the Thorns active. The range for it is 20 units, which is like really weak. I just don't think this is ever going to be too applicable. At the most, you're probably going to have 2 gods near you, like within 20 units. It's quite small range. And like, I guess you could go this one specifically on like auto attack solo laners, maybe, you know, you build this on like Erlang, Bologna, those kind of gods. But even if it's good there, it's so niche, and I don't think it'll even be good there compared to the other Thorns upgrade, which we'll place now. So this one I'll probably put in B. I think this is definitely the better upgrade of the 2. So this one works, I guess, in a similar way to Persistent Teleport, where you can reduce the cooldown of the relic, like while it's in your slot and on cooldown. This one has a base cooldown of 80 seconds versus 120 seconds for this upgrade of Thorns, so like it's already a shorter cooldown, and then every time you get basic attacked, it reduces the cooldown by 0.5 seconds if it is on cooldown. And that might not seem like a lot, but like if you're just trading in like in lane or something like that, or like poking in fights, like you will take a fair few basic attacks and it will reduce the cooldown of this a lot, and its base cooldown is just 80 seconds, so it's going to be up a lot. Obviously, Thorns hasn't been super strong lately, and I'm not sure that's really going to change in Season 8 with a lot of the other, like, really strong relics. Like, I don't think this is going to outcompete a lot of these A or S tier relics. But if you are going to go Thorns, go this one. I think it's a lot better than this one, basically. And yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on all the Season 9 Tier 3 relic upgrades. Again, as I said at the start of the video, this is just PTS. The new season's not even out yet, and we're getting PTS changes like every few days at this point, so these could change and get nerfed or buffed and become better or worse, and I could just be wrong about them. You know, I don't have a ton of Season 9 experience yet, but I've played a few games and watched others and things like that and got a good idea for what's generally strong. Some things are just obviously going to be really good, but there's some things that are a bit more niche. So yeah, let me know what you guys think down below, whether you agree or not with these placements. It'll be interesting to see what the kind of community consensus is on a lot of these relics, especially if you play PTS and have like some experience with them. Definitely let me know. But yeah, with that said, I'll catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.